What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 377 of AskGSM, here today for Wednesday, February 17th, 2021. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below on the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. One quick cheap plug, I am announcing my next interview, probably today because it's coming out on Friday on Bleacher Report and right here on the channel. And I say this every single goddamn video, but I cannot stress this enough. If you're not already subscribed, please do so. And hit the bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up. We have the Q&A videos every single Wednesday. We have the podcast excerpts every single Thursday. But in between that, we have Talking Smack reviews on Saturday. SmackDown audio reviews on Saturday. We don't get to SmackDown on WrestleRant Radio, so I break that down myself every Saturday right here on the channel. We have Raw Talk reviews every Tuesday. We have interviews, WWE Network and Chill videos where I break down Untold, 24, straight up Steve Austin, Total Bellas, Miz and Mrs., and so much more. So check all that stuff out. But again, new interviews pretty much every single week. Last week we had Finn Balor, the NXT champion before TakeOver, as well as Ember Moon on Friday and Sunday respectively. Both interviews were great. We got one coming up today before Elimination Chamber on Sunday. I'm doing it today. It won't be going up until Friday morning. So subscribe. Please help me reach that 5,000 subscriber mark. That milestone is quickly approaching, so I would greatly appreciate if you can help me reach that goal. So let's get going with your questions here today, starting with Noel from YouTube. Their first question was, what would you say was the best year of SmackDown, 2002 to 2003 or late 2007? I am really not overly familiar with SmackDown at all from late 07. I know the Batista Taker Edge feud really dominated that period of SmackDown. The Batista Taker feud really dominated a majority of 2007 in general on the Blue brand. I'm not really familiar with what else they were doing at that point. I know Edge reclaimed the world title at the December Armageddon pay-per-view. Hawkins and Ryder debut. That was when they kind of started to do the La Familia stable. Other than that, I really don't know. I wasn't watching at that point. I haven't heard anyone say, oh man, late 07 was such a great period for SmackDown. If you said 2016 or 02-03, that would be a tougher question. Because SmackDown in 2016 was fucking fire. And I think I've said this before. I've definitely said this in the last couple of weeks. That my favorite year in SmackDown since I started watching, my favorite year of SmackDown since I started watching in 2008 would absolutely 120% be 2016. Such a great year for the Blue brand. But between the two choices that you gave me, I would probably still go with 02-03, even if it was 2016 on the line here. Just because that early brand split feel of SmackDown was so great. They created so many new stars. Edge was on the rise at that point. Kurt Angle was doing great work. They rejuvenated the career of Big Show when he came back in late 02, won the World Championship, won the WWE title. Taker was doing great work, elevating talent. Brock Lesnar was the face of the show from 02 to 04. You had Rey Mysterio doing his thing. He got his start on SmackDown in 02. Eddie Guerrero did great work, went on to win a World Championship. Benoit was doing great work. Chavo Guerrero was in the mix. I mean, the amount of stars they produced in such a short period. John Cena as well. Booker T was in the mix for a little while. Rob Van Dam at one point. Maybe not in late 02. No, Rob Van Dam was on Raw at that point. But everyone else I mentioned was pretty much on SmackDown. So absolutely 02 to 03. Even 03, I would say maybe up until, I don't know when that SmackDown 6 era kind of ended. Maybe up until WrestleMania. But late 02 to early 03 was chef's kiss for SmackDown. No second question was from Facebook, so I just kind of put it into one here. The question was, what are your thoughts on the Sammy Guevara incident with Impact? I'm not really sure if it's much of an incident, but it was reported and not confirmed. Guevara kind of not debunked the reports on his video blog, his vlog this past week, but he made reference that, anything that you read on the internet may not necessarily be true type of thing. So I'm not sure if all the details are 100% accurate. But the report indicated that he was supposed to go to Impact at the most recent set of tapings. He probably would have been on last night's episode. I don't think any other AEW talent showed up on the show. We had New Japan talent with David Finlay and Juice Robinson, which was really cool, but no AEW talent, at least not yet. Not again, anyway. So it was reported that Guevara was supposed to do a storyline over there, which would make sense because he walked off of Dynamite last week. He quit the Inner Circle, and he said he had to go away for a little while. I had seen people even speculating at that point, what if he spent some time in Impact? I think that would have been fucking cool. And it made sense, too. It's not like they're just bringing in random AEW talent at this point. Like they're bringing in, Joey Janela. Who gives a fuck? Like, Guevara is a top name over in AEW, all things considered. He's a star in the rise. He's very good. He's in the midst of a major storyline right now. For him to take a quick detour over to Impact for a couple of weeks, week or two, whatever, I think would have been really cool. So I'm bummed that we're not getting it, but the report indicated that he was presented with creative that he didn't like, didn't want to do it. And I guess there's no heat on either side. On Impact and AEW still working well together. There's no issue there. There's no heat there. So thankfully it didn't jeopardize anything. They make it sound like it's a bigger deal than it actually was. I'm not exactly sure what the storyline was that Guevara didn't agree with. I mean, it's not like he's Chris Jericho. You know what I mean? Like, Guevara is one of their more notable talents. But unless it was something like I don't really know. I can't really begin to speculate. I'm not sure if it was something offensive or if it was just something that he didn't think it was right for his character. I'm not exactly sure. But he said no. They're like, okay. He didn't show up at the tapings and he wasn't used. So it sucks because it would have been cool to see Guevara on Impact and see that crossover continue. But yeah, that was really what it was. And I guess, again, there's no heat on either side. So we all just kind of move forward. Brandon A. from YouTube's got a bit of a lengthy question here, but I like this one a lot. Their question was, I love Cesaro, and I'm glad he's getting a push. We've got a lot of Cesaro questions lately, too. He continued, I'm not sure that it'll end in him winning the WWE or Universal Championship, but let's pretend for a second that it happens. I would be ecstatic in the moment. But how do they produce him going forward? In my opinion, he struggled through that Talking Smack promo on Saturday. He wasn't terrible, but he certainly wasn't good. I've asked this about Shinsuke Nakamura in 2018, and I've asked this about Bray Wyatt on the in-ring side of things. How can you give people like this a good and moderately lengthy title run when you can't produce consistently on the mic or in the ring? Cesaro is a fantastic in-ring performer, but his mic work lacks big time, and his character isn't interesting or defined enough to make up for it. This is why I don't care about Bray Wyatt winning championships, even as The Fiend. He is a fantastic talker, and his character is great. But him having to carry matches over a 6-month period to legitimize a title run sounds absolutely awful. His best matches were tag matches, and the only good singles matches he really had were with Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns, and in the Roman Reigns feud in 2015. How do you resolve this problem and actually make the title reigns good, lengthy, and sensible? You're not wrong. So as far as the Talking Smack promo is concerned, I completely agree. It was far from smooth. He tripped over his words a little bit. But you can tell it was from the heart. It was an organic promo. And say what you will about it. Was it the smoothest promo of all time? Was it the most consistently, flawless promo I've ever heard? Absolutely not. But I will take that promo 110 times over some of the scripted bullshit that we see on these shows. Regardless of whether it's excellently executed or not. Regardless of whether it's this perfect promo. And again, the perfect promo when scripted is great too. But I love the promos, and this is very rare in WWE. And maybe they did give him a script and he couldn't follow it, whatever. To me, watching that promo, him looking into the camera, it felt like he was speaking from the heart and talking to everyone at home that has ever supported him. I will take those promos any day of the week over the scripted bullshit, personally. Doesn't matter how much he struggles to get through it. He got people talking about that promo. He had more people talking about his promo than almost any other promo last week in WWE. And there were some good promos last week. Roman Reigns had a really good promo on SmackDown. We see good promos all the time. McIntyre, Sheamus. I mean, there's a lot of people between Raw and SmackDown that cut really good promos. Cesaro is far from the greatest talker. I'm not even going to go, even argue that, obviously. But it was a heartfelt promo. Can you cut that type of promo every time if you're WWE champion? Obviously not. But the thing with Cesaro is that the guy has never even been given a chance. He's never even been featured in a World Championship program. regardless of whether he can cut a great promo or not. His promo skills are not terrible to the point where I don't think it would be a bad idea to put a championship on him, at least for a little bit. Not every championship run has to be 6 months, memorable. How many fucking long title runs did Stone Cold Steve Austin have? And he was one of the greatest talkers in WWE history. I'm not saying Cesaro is Stone Cold Steve Austin, obviously. All I'm saying is that, yeah, he can have a good title run, but it doesn't need to be lengthy. It doesn't need to be 8 months long. Again, I know the circumstances now regarding why people may not like the guy, obviously, for obvious reasons, but Chris Benoit, he won the World Championship, not just won the World Championship, he won it in the fucking main event of WrestleMania. And I wasn't watching wrestling at this point, so you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like that happened because people just connected with Benoit. He was getting good reactions, and more importantly, he was a fucking phenomenal professional wrestler inside that ring, between those ropes. And he went on to have not the greatest world championship reign of all time. He lost it, never regained it, barely got any shots after that. But, he had a decent title reign. He had a lot of great matches early on with Shawn Michaels and Triple H. The matches with Triple H I thought were great. The 2 triple threats were awesome. He had a very good match with Randy Orton at SummerSlam for the World Heavyweight Championship. So again, was he the focal point of Raw while he was the World Heavyweight Champion? No. But he still had a very good reign, filled with great matches. I can't tell you the most memorable Chris Benoit promo I've ever heard. I can't name a single one, to be honest with you. But again, I wasn't watching at that point, so I'm probably wrong, but I feel like anytime he was in the mic, at least during that period, he's connected with the audience. Cesaro has connected with the audience. Regardless of how bad the ring or how good they are in the mic or vice versa, sometimes while the iron is hot, you gotta fucking strike. Cesaro, obviously, I'm not going to say the iron has been hot this entire time. He's cooled off considerably over the years because of the bad booking, being put in tag teams. But through all the bad booking, people still want to see him win a championship. People really, really want to see him as WWE or Universal Champion. Is it going to happen at this point? I think so. I don't think it's going to happen at all. It's cool to think that he might get a shot at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. I'm actually banking on him winning the whole thing. And the only other person that would make sense is Daniel Bryan. Corbin isn't fucking winning. Sami Zayn is not winning. Who are the other guys? Kevin Owens? No thanks. Been there, done that. Jey Uso, been there, done that. So it's really down to Bryan and Cesaro. And Bryan and Reigns really should be a full-on feud, not thrown out there as a random Elimination Chamber title match. Cesaro and Roman, you don't need to have a full-on feud for that. That can be a one-off match, and it could be fucking great. Cesaro can take Roman to the limit, lose, look good in defeat. I know mic skills are important, in-ring stuff is important, but sometimes when you connect with the audience, you just gotta fucking run with it. And what happens from there? That's a great question. That's a great question, because sometimes, like Kofi Kingston, before he won the WWE Championship, yeah, he connected in 2009. Kofi Kingston, to me, has never felt like a main event player. But when he won that WWE Championship, he was one of the hottest stars in the entire company, even arguably sometimes over Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins, who also won top titles at WrestleMania 35 that year. Kofi had a great run. Could it have been better? Obviously, he never main evented, I don't think, a single fucking pay-per-view. Had some good pay-per-view matches, but not great. He had some very good matches, but he was champion for 6 months. And then you have a guy like Jinder Mahal. He was scripted as shit. He looked like $1 million. He looks like a main event player, but in the ring he was terrible, and the mic skills weren't there. I know they put the belt on him to expand over into India, that market. Did it work? I have no idea. I have no clue. But as far as Cesaro is concerned, I don't see why not. Why can't he get a Kofi-like run? When the fans are into you and they want to see this person win the world championship, I'm not even saying like it's some random schmo like Chad Gable. Listen, I love Chad Gable. The guy's fantastic. But no one is saying right now, oh, Chad Gable should be world champion. I don't think anyone has ever said that. I think people want to see him get used better, obviously. Absolutely. But I don't know if I could ever see Chad Gable as a WWE champion. Cesaro, the guy looks great. He can talk decent. He's amazing in the ring. And he has the fucking audience. Not a lot of people in this company feel remotely special for a variety of reasons, whether it just be because they're not special or just because the booking is so bad. A guy like Cesaro, where the crowd actually is invested in him and still wants to see him succeed. He hasn't quite reached Dolph Ziggler territory, where he's been booked so badly. Cesaro, unlike Dolph Ziggler, never got that shot. At least Ziggler had a very brief title run. Cesaro never had that. He has gotten one in almost 9 years on the main roster. One world title match that I can remember. And that was in that Elimination Chamber match almost exactly 7 years ago, Elimination Chamber 2014. And he looked great in that match, and he was never promoted to that type of a level again. They made him a Paul Heyman guy, and that didn't work because Heyman had just, him and Brock had just broken the streak at WrestleMania. So Heyman was hated. Cesaro should have been a babyface. They never really put the time or the effort into making that work. Heyman was more so focused on Brock. It was just a complete waste of time. But it could have been something a lot better had they actually booked it better. And they didn't. But I do think Cesaro, I would still love to see him win a world championship someday. I think it would make for a great moment. And what happens from there? You book him like a main eventer. Kofi Kingston, again, I never really saw him as being this perennial main event player. But I fully believe that after he lost the championship in 2019, you could have elevated him to that role full time. Because people connected with him. He was really popular in 2019. The New Day is still very popular. But especially at that point, he could cut a good promo, and he was good in the ring. He wasn't exceptional. I don't think he was exceptional in any of those areas. He wasn't the best wrestler in the company. He's not the best talker in the company. But he had a great story. Cesaro has a great story. I'm not saying Cesaro will or should go on to become a 10-time WWE champion. He's not nearly as being on the level of a Roman Reigns in certain respects, or an Edge, or even a McIntyre. I think McIntyre checks more boxes than Cesaro does, but that still doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve a shot. Again, if it doesn't work out, whether it be because it doesn't work or they don't book him properly, then at least you can say you tried. But I think it's criminal this guy has not been booked better as more of a top-tier talent than he has already. Next 4 questions come from @RebornAgain, John Ritlin on Twitter and on YouTube. A Real Honesty with John Ritlin puts out great content, so subscribe. His first question was, why are they sound, bound, and determined to feature Riddle when he's always getting his ass kicked by Lashley or whoever he's facing? I'm not a fan of Riddle, but this just isn't worth the TV time. I don't think they're doing it as like a punishment to Riddle, like they don't see anything in the guy, because I feel like if they call him up just to be a loser, first of all, he's won his fair share of matches on the main roster. Not like a shit ton, but he hasn't been booked like a complete loser. He did beat Baron Corbin, King Corbin, whatever the fuck that's worth, in his pay-per-view debut, didn't he, at the Payback pay-per-view last year? He's beaten Sheamus, I believe, since being on Raw. He did beat Sheamus since coming to Raw. He's now in the U.S. Championship mix. He beat Bobby Lashley at the beginning of the year. So he's won his fair share of matches. He was in the Royal Rumble for like close to a half an hour. And he was booked fairly well in the Rumble. He was in there with some top talent, including Edge, among others. So it's not like they see Riddle as a loser. At least I don't think so. The reason why he's getting his ass kicked, I would think, not because it has less to do with Riddle and more because they're building up Bobby Lashley. I talked about this last week, and I tweeted it out yesterday. I cannot express how fucking badly I want to see Bobby Lashley enter that Elimination Chamber on Sunday, whether it means taking the spot of Jeff Hardy or Kofi Kingston, or, I could see a scenario, and I've said this before, where Ali and Retribution attack Kofi Kingston, and they take him out of the Elimination Chamber because Kofi took Ali's spot, technically, in the Elimination Chamber 2 years ago. And then Bobby Lashley, after losing the United States Championship earlier on in the show, can come back out. Excuse me, my voice is all over the place. And by the way, if you heard the audio before during the Cesaro question cut out multiple times, the editing is all weird, it's because I had to pause, and when I came back, it was just, it chopped out at several points. It cut out at several points. So I tried to do my best to make it better, but hopefully the rest of the episode doesn't have that issue. But anyway, like I said, I think this has less to do with Riddle and more to do with Bobby Lashley. I would love to see Bobby Lashley take someone's spot on Sunday and win the whole fucking chamber and become WWE champion after already losing the United States Championship earlier on in the show. Will that happen? No. Should it happen? Probably. Because no one else in that chamber really gets me excited. I mean, McIntyre retaining is a good idea. Styles winning would be awesome, I think. I don't think that's going to happen. Sheamus winning is what I expect to happen. I kind of want to see that happen just because you can't have Drew beat Sheamus and then still do Sheamus and Drew at WrestleMania. I feel like Drew would have to be in chase mode for that. Bobby Lashley entering the thing. Drew and Sheamus cancel each other out. Bobby's in there at the very end with fucking... I don't even know. I mean, I guess they already have 4 heels in there as it is. If you add in Bobby Lashley, it would be Lashley, Styles, Sheamus, and Orton. But he can kill everyone and win the whole thing. That's not going to happen. But they have to be protecting Bobby Lashley for something. They have never put this much effort into protecting someone as a mid-card champion. Usually it's the opposite. Usually they have the secondary champions losing every other fucking week and losing non-title matches, and they're just booked like shit. I mean, look no further than Andrade. Andrade lost way more often than he won, I believe, when he was United States champion around this time a year ago. So I think it's because they really want to build up Bobby, because Bobby has not just been beating up Riddle. I mean, he beat the fuck out of Jeff Hardy for, 4 weeks last year? When Hardy and Riddle were teaming for a little bit, that was abandoned pretty quickly, but he was attacking Jeff Hardy every single week. He got the better of Apollo Crews every single week. He got the better of Jeff Hardy every single week. He got the better of Ricochet every single week. He's gotten the better of the Lucha House Party, now Riddle. So it's not really, it is a Riddle problem, but I think it's more because they want to protect Bobby and not because, let's have Riddle get his ass kicked because, we don't like him or we don't see anything in him, blah, blah, blah. I don't think they see what like you said, you're not a Riddle fan, but I think the guy has potential. He's obviously problematic outside of the ring to a certain extent with all the issues that have come up about him in the last year, specifically with the speaking out stuff. But in the ring, I think the guy has top talent potential. But from a character standpoint, the whole bro thing, and him saying bro doesn't really bother me, but the bro nuts and whatever, oh my God, that was terrible. And he's still doing dumb shit every week on Raw. So they just booked the guy like a buffoon. So, anyway, yeah, they got to do a better job of that. But with Bobby, they're just really, really pushing him hard. So we'll see where they go with Lashley, and he doesn't just end up in a random-ass multi-man match at WrestleMania. He's got to be being built up for Drew or Brock or maybe Keith. But even Keith, I feel like, has not been protected all that much since coming to Raw. He's lost a bunch, too. He's lost to Miz and Morrison in a handicap match. He's been beaten by Braun. I'm pretty sure AJ Styles beat him 1 week. He lost to Drew for the WWE Championship at the beginning of the year. So he's lost this fair amount as well. So I mean, Bobby does not really lose at all. So, I mean, it's got to be more than just Keith Lee. I think Keith Lee and Lashley would be great, but I don't get the sense that they're building up Bobby Lashley just to face Keith Lee and likely lose to Lee at WrestleMania. And Riddle could very well win the United States Championship on Sunday. If Keith Lee is good to go, he's at the event, and it's still a triple threat, they can have Riddle pin Lee, or Lee pin Riddle, and then have Lashley go off and do his own thing. I don't think that's going to happen, but just an idea. His second question, what did you think of the first round of the Japanese bracket of the AEW Women's Tournament? I thought given the pandemic restrictions, it wasn't bad, and at least allowed the women to show their personalities to a bigger audience than usual. I actually liked it. Now, I maintain what I've said since the start, and I'm far from the only one who has said this. The tournament is completely pointless. I mean, it is nice to see them showcase their female talent. I would be a hypocrite if I said, I hate the tournament, yet I've been complaining for months now, along with many other people, that we need to see more of the women on AEW TV. Granted, we've only had one first-round match on Dynamite so far. They could have afforded to do 2 last week. They didn't. We had the entire first round for the Japanese side of the bracket on YouTube on Monday. But I'm actually glad because, it wasn't filmed at Dynamite. Obviously, they were filmed over in Japan. The finals, I don't even think the finals are taking place at the pay-per-view. I think they're doing the championship match itself. Hikaru Shida versus the winner at Revolution next month. So whoever wins the Japanese side of the bracket will probably be flown in the next couple of weeks, probably for the go-home show, and then they'll do it there. So yeah, I think it's cool that they're giving these women more of a platform. I'm more familiar with a lot of these women than I was before. I already knew, I don't know if you pronounce her last name as Sakazaki. I forgot what her, Yuko. I remember Yuko from when she was on AEW about a year ago. Emi Sakura, obviously, I remember. And some of these names, again, the pronunciation, I'm absolutely terrible at, so I apologize in advance. Maki Ito, I had heard about through Twitter. I actually talked about her last week with the whole Jim Cornette thing. I said this here on the show last week, the whole deity of shit thing was fucking bizarre to me. That didn't exactly get me excited to see her in the ring. But she was the one who stood out the most, more than anyone else, on that first round. And you had a lot of good performers on that show. I thought the Emi Sakura match was probably the best one of the 4. Maki Ito stood out the most. She stood out as being very likable. Again, the whole deity of shit and piss thing that she was tweeting about, I'm not sure if that's a regular gimmick or if she just did it to get people talking about her. That was fucking weird to me. But everything else, I think she's great. And then you had Aja Kong in the main event. She's obviously a very established name. She has history, whatever. So, and Maki Ito lost, which was weird. But I thought the matches were good. I would rank them probably match 2, match 1, match 3, and then match 4 in terms of how I thought. I mean, none of them were bad. Like, the main event was pretty much a squash for Aja Kong and her winning pretty dominantly for the most part, pretty decisively. But I thought it was well done. Like you said, the pandemic restrictions, you had the mask. You had the referee wearing a mask, which was actually kind of cool because you don't see that in the U.S. at all. They take it very seriously over there, which I appreciate. But, you know, there were no fans. Was it the most beautiful-looking arena that I've ever seen? No, it looked like a broom closet. But it didn't bother me. I mean, it's a fucking pandemic. What do you expect? You know, it's an hour-long, 60-minute, 63-minute YouTube show. Who cares where it's filmed? You know, it was like 61 minutes. It was like an hour, almost on the dot. That's perfectly fine. I could see them. I think they will do the second round on YouTube probably next week. The matches were good. My only nitpick of the show was that they didn't really do anything to familiarize us with who these competitors are. Again, I know we've seen, I think, at least half of the women on. I know the woman that Maki Ito lost to has been, I think she was at Double or Nothing 2 years ago. She's been to the AEW before. Everyone else, I mean, Sakura, Yuko, and Aja have all been with AEW. The other 4 I've never even heard of. So it would have been nice if we got a video package. You don't have to do sit-down interviews with subtitles. You don't have to do that. It would help, but it's not that big of a deal. At the very least, show a little bit of a video package showing their work, what they're about, who they are. You know, they didn't do that, and Excalibur, to his credit, did do a good job of trying to get people familiar with who these women were, regardless of whether they were already known or not by AEW fans. So I appreciated that, and at least they allow their personalities, some of them, to allow their personalities to shine through. Specifically in the case of Ito, I thought she stood out more than anyone, like I said. So again, it was good. I don't think you need to go out of your way. The title of the video was called Must-See Matches. I don't know if they're must-see. The Emi Sakura match was the best of the bunch, I would say. And I was never the biggest Emi Sakura fan from when she was in the company with AEW and the the Riho match that she was in with Sakura at, what was it, Full Gear 2019? Couldn't have cared less about it personally. I did not give 2 shits about the match. But I thought she had a kick-ass match on Monday. So, again, nothing you really need to go out of your way to see, but I would probably recommend watching it just because at least one of these women, of course, will be facing the finals on the U.S. side, the finalists on the U.S. side, in the finals of the tournament, probably in an upcoming episode of Dynamite, and then go on to face Shida at the pay-per-view. So we shall see. But I thought they were good. I thought the matches were solid. His third question, with the WWE Network moving to Peacock next month, what do you hope the move will improve as far as how the streaming service works, i.e. better video quality, less lag, better servers to handle the traffic, etc.? You know, I'm going to sound like a mark here, but I really don't have any issues with the network at all. I'm on it all the time. You're probably on it more than I am, John, just because you review a lot of content from there. By the way, again, can't stress this enough. Check out his channel. John does great stuff. I don't really have much of an issue. I don't know if it's my internet connection being good or what. Maybe it's just because I watch it on my laptop, and I don't know. I usually watch the network on a variety of devices. Alexis has a Roku stick. We watch it on her TV. I watch it on my Roku TV. I watch it on my laptop, and I watch it on my phone. I've never had an issue with any 4 of them, at least not in a long time. I'm sure there are features, if I really thought about it, that I want to see implemented. My fear is that when it goes to Peacock, that it won't be as extensive as it is right now in the WWE Network. I would love if the network was just what it is now, just brought over to Peacock. Like it's a separate site, still attached to Peacock. I like the organization of it. You quickly type in one thing, you can find not only the show, but a specific match or a segment or a promo. I think the organization of the network is great. I really don't have much of a lag at all. Watching the pay-per-views live, I haven't had an issue with that in fucking years for the most part. So again, it might be based on where you live or your internet connection or whatever. I really do not have an issue with the network at all. My biggest thing for the longest time was like, why don't they have markers to tell you where you left off? And they're finally doing that. They've done that for years, but when it first started, they didn't have that. I thought there was something I really wanted to see implemented that was like Netflix. I don't remember. Like, they have the next episode option. They have that on there too, which is cool. I can't remember what it was. Creating lists and stuff like that. You can still do that, I think, which is nice. Some of the collections I wish were better organized. But again, my only hope is that as organized as it is right now, that'll carry over to Peacock. Because I fear that that won't be the case. And they'll just kind of throw all the shit on there not as it is, but like with the NBC stuff. And it's going to be really hard to find everything. So I really hope that's not the case. Because I personally think the current layout of the network is fine. I'm just kind of worried like they won't have the markers or the bookmarks or the playlist option or this or that. That's kind of what I'm worried about. And his last question there. Wow, AEW had an episode of AEW Dark with 12 matches, and it was over an hour. It was just over an hour and change. Are they finally listening to the criticisms of other editions running way too long? It sounds like they are. I mean, honestly, no. I'm going to say no, they're not. They're not listening to me. They're not listening to you. AEW Dark has been a fucking 3-hour show, 2 to 3 hour show. Okay, maybe not 3 hours, but it was like 2 hours and 45 minutes. At one point, a couple of months ago. It was ridiculous. So, with AEW Dark, I don't think they're listening to us complaining about the length, because it's been this long for 6 months now. It's been this long since the summer of last year. What I think is going on here is that now because of the Impact, because of the Impact cross-promotion, they don't want to carry over into Impact, which could have been the absolute best thing for people who watch Dark. I watch both shows. I watch Dark, and then I watch Impact. Last night, because it was an hour and 7 minutes long, I kind of had to watch both at the same time for like 5 minutes. But that really wasn't that big of a deal. And they had 12 matches, yes, but half of them were squashes, which is exactly what the fucking show should be. I've seen some people say, oh, I missed the jobber entrances. Why? Who cares? Unless they plan to sign these people like a Bear Country or a Nick Camarado, they both got entrances last night. I honestly don't give a fuck about seeing Alex Gracia's entrance or VSK's entrance or Baron Black's entrance. I don't care. I skip over it anyway. So save the time by not even showing their entrances. I know AEW does stuff that WWE doesn't that's actually a plus. That is one thing that WWE doesn't do that they don't need to do. I know they're not as expendable as some of the local athletes that WWE brings in for their shows. But man, I know they feature a lot of these same people every single week on Dark to lose to other people, but we don't need to see their entrances. I don't care. The match doesn't need to be 5 to 10 minutes. That was another big criticism I had of Dark. You had 15 matches that were all the same fucking thing. And a lot of them were 5 to 10 minute competitive matches when they didn't need to be. I don't need to see Jurassic Express in there for 10 minutes fighting losers that will never be signed. Why does that need to be a competitive match? If you're telling me that these are the stars and these are not, then why is it taking the stars so long to beat these other people? I have said this for months. Jurassic Express won in their last night, won in literally like 30 seconds, probably less. I was very, very happy about that. Booking people like Powerhouse Hobbs and Brian Cage and guys like that in 10 to 15 second squashes, that's what you fucking should be doing. I thought that was the best episode of Dark I have seen in a long time. I still prefer the original format of like 2 to 3 mid-card matches. But listen, it's the best of both worlds. They're giving these indie guys a paycheck during a pandemic. I know that's the whole point. That's more important than me complaining. But for someone who watches the show and for someone who reviews the show, which I understand is the vast minority, me and John and people like that, I completely get that. But I mean, come on, man. Like a 2 hour and 45 minute show. Oh, it's the best wrestling all week. No, it's fucking not. They're literally just squash matches. Extended, glorified squash matches. I'm so glad they made that change. I don't know, why it took this long, but it probably is because of the Impact thing. I don't know if it's going to stick, but I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts. And if it's because that they don't want to run over into Impact because they want people to watch both shows, then that is the greatest thing that could have ever happened to AEW and specifically Dark. Because it makes it a lot easier for me as someone who wants to watch both shows. I want to watch Impact on time. I want to watch Dark as it airs. I mean, Dark I can watch another time just because it's so, there's nothing must-see on the show. But you feature the occasional big name. Jon Moxley was on last night in the opening match. That's perfect. Bring in Jericho once in a while, or Cody Rhodes to do that same exact type of thing. It doesn't need to be the same faces every single week. Having Ty Conti on there every week makes sense to kind of help her get better, and people like that. But like the established names, some of the other people like Jurassic Express do not need to be on there every single week. But if they are, give them quick squashes like they did last night. I think that is absolutely perfect. So thank you, Impact, for this promotion, for this cross-promotion. Because as a result of that, I mean, I guess AEW was responsible, but probably because of that, Dark is now significantly shorter, and I could not be happier. One less thing for me to complain about. At Farron's 53, his question was, from Jared, of course, of the woman who lost in the first round of the Women's Eliminator Japan bracket, who do you think has the most long-term potential? Who would you like to see more of? I just got done talking about this, but Ito probably. Again, the social media activity, not exactly for me, but I thought the match was good. She was impressive. She looked great in defeat. She showed personality. She showed charisma more than any other woman on the show. And they had some pretty charismatic women on the show. Sakura, I believe is how you pronounce her name. Again, I'm a fucking idiot. I apologize in advance, and I already apologized. But Emi, her dumping the Freddie Mercury gimmick, I don't know if she's still doing it or if she just ditched it for this one episode, was the best thing that could have happened. Her coming out the fake mustache did absolutely nothing for me. I thought that was so dumb. And the matches weren't good enough to make up for it either. They were decent, but they weren't like blow away amazing. But she had a very good match last night. She ditched the Freddie Mercury shit and went in there and had a great match. I loved it. But Ito, I think, of the four women who lost, first of all, that's the only woman I remember. I know the other four had good showings. They were all good. But Ito was the only one that really stood out. So I got to go with Ito, and I expect them to probably use her again based off, I mean, she has had more of a response than literally anyone else on the Japanese side of the bracket. Literally anybody, even more than Aja Kong or Emi or Yuko. Like way more buzz, just probably because of either the Cornette stuff or the Twitter activity. Again, I don't give a fuck about the Twitter stuff, but her in the ring, she's entertaining. Do I want to see more of her on the show? I do. Do I think we will see more of her on the show? At some point, I do. But yeah, I thought it was a good hour of wrestling, like I said earlier. At noob_n_code 1991 from Twitter, their first question was, what dream matches do you want to see Meiko Satomura have in WWE? I heard a lot of people say they want Sasha Banks, Io Shirai, and Asuka. You know, no one match really stands out. I think Io Shirai would be phenomenal while she's still in NXT, doing like a cross-promotion match. Like when they did Worlds Collide last year. You can't really do that now with the whole pandemic and whatnot, but, you know, if they want to do another one of those with Meiko and Io, I think that'd be fucking awesome. Io probably will not be champion for much longer. Meiko will probably be winning the NXT UK women's title very soon. So if you can find a point where they're both champions, and they don't have to both be champions. I think that would help, though. But you can have them face off on an episode of NXT UK or on NXT or at a TakeOver. I think it's fucking great before Io probably goes to the main roster at some point, and we're all very worried about what will happen to her. Yeah, Meiko and Sasha I think would be really cool. Sasha's expressed interest in working with all the Japanese legends. She's a big fan of the Japanese culture. I think those two could have a really good match. Meiko and Bayley would be fun. Asuka and Meiko would be really cool too. So yeah, any of those matches, those are the top 3 or 4 that come to my mind. I'm trying to think of anyone else, but yeah, Kaylee Ray and Meiko should be really good. Rhea and Meiko at some point should be great. Even Bianca and Meiko. I mean, that sounds really random, but they were both in the Mae Young Classic, I think. Or no. Bianca was in 2017. Meiko was in 2018. But at some point down the road, that could be a good match too. Meiko versus pretty much anybody. I think seeing her in NXT UK is just really, really cool that at this point, at this stage of the game, in the honeymoon phase, seeing her up against really any one of those women, I mean, I think it'd be awesome anyway, but especially now would be fucking cool. Their second question, what are your thoughts on Spike Lee directing a possible movie in the MCU? Do you think we might be getting a possible sequel or a possible Spider-Man Miles Morales movie? The Spike Lee thing, I don't really have many thoughts on him directing a possible movie in the MCU. If it's good, great. Otherwise, I mean, I'm not the biggest Spike Lee fan, so I can't really say, oh man, I can't wait. So I'm not really sure. But as far as the possible Spider-Man Miles Morales movie, it's inevitable. I mean, they had to have seen Sony, Disney, whatever. They had to have seen how popular, how successful the Into the Spider-Verse movie was 2 years ago. A little over 2 years ago. It was a great movie. It still resonates with people. I still see people talking about it 2-3 years later. It was a great film, so they're obviously going to revisit that. I mean, I know they're doing a sequel, of course, in a few years. But as far as like the MCU is concerned, I would be shocked if we do not get a Miles Morales in like the upcoming Spider-Man 3 movie. I don't know if it would just be a live-action version of the Miles Morales from the Into the Spider-Verse or a different version, because they did imply that he exists in the MCU in the first Spider-Man movie, in Homecoming, with he was like Donald Glover's like nephew or something. So yeah, I think we'll probably get a Miles Morales movie. I heard the video game's been very popular. The movie was great, so I think it's only inevitable. His last question, he asked, what are your thoughts on the trailer for the Snyder Cut version of Justice League? You know, I watched it with the DC stuff. I really don't care. I know I saw the first version of Justice League well after it came out. Like, I saw it on an airplane. This was not good. I would never watch it again. With the Snyder Cut, I know it's supposed to be what the movie was originally supposed to be. It's supposed to be Snyder's vision. The trailer looked cool. We live in a society meme at the end from the Joker was funny. Spoiler alert. Just for, you know, we live in a society meme. I've heard that, you know, said since the first Joker movie. Not the first Joker movie, but the last one a couple of years ago. Like, my roommate used to bring that up to me all the time. Yeah, the trailer looks cool, but like, it's one of those things where I'm not, especially at a 4-hour-long movie. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, isn't it coming out on HBO Max and in theaters? Like, I don't know if I can justify going to see a 4-hour movie if I'm not overly invested in it to begin with. If it's like a 4-hour cut of like Infinity War or Endgame, then yeah, probably. But I don't know. So with the DC stuff, what I usually do, like Shazam looked decent, and then I saw it, I was like, oh man, that was really good. I wait to see what other people are saying about it, for the most part. I went to go see Wonder Woman 1984 just because I hadn't been to a movie theater in a long time. It was safe. We went a couple of weeks ago, my dad and brother and I, and it was really more about just going to the movies. And, you know, and again, it was like there was almost nobody there. They're not selling popcorn right now. They're not doing a lot of shit, but it was still a nice experience. It was a couple days after Christmas. I knew that wasn't good. I heard that there were a lot of issues with it. I saw it. I'm like, wow, they were right. This really wasn't good at all, and we just kind of made fun of it the whole time. But with most movies, though, like I heard Wonder Woman was good. Went to go see that. Enjoyed it, the first one. Same thing with, what did I just say? Shazam. Aquaman, I heard, was decent. I didn't see it until just recently. I didn't see it until last summer, until like 2 years after it came out. It was good. I wouldn't watch it again, but it was good. Yeah, I don't know. Just with the Snyder Cut and anything really DC related, I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it unless I hear it's absolutely great and it's worth watching. And if enough people are talking about it in terms of like, oh, it's that good, you have to see it, then I'll go watch it. I mean, otherwise I might just I might suck it up and sign up for HBO Max for a week just to see what all the buzz is about. But we'll see. If you guys say it's good enough to go check out, then I will. Otherwise, they probably won't even waste the time. At Rusty Rages from Twitter, who do you think will face Asuka at WrestleMania? As of now, there really is no clear-cut favorite. Side question, come Friday, will you be watching any of the Muppet Show episodes when all 5 seasons drop? You're goddamn right I will be. I heard about that a couple of weeks ago when the Muppets dropped the news that it was coming to Disney+. I got really, really excited. I remember watching the original Muppet Show when I was a really, really young kid. Maybe like 5 or 6. I was always a big Sesame Street fan. I loved Scooby-Doo for a while. But I think my love from the Muppets came from Sesame Street. It's usually, some people like the Muppets and then they like Sesame Street. I was the other way around. So I love the fucking Muppets. It's funny you mentioned that. I don't know if I mentioned this anywhere, but on Valentine's Day, after TakeOver was over, Alexis and I watched the original Muppet movie on Disney+. Why? Well, we were looking for movies to watch. We almost watched Soul. Wasn't in the right mood for it, so we were looking through what was on there. And she wanted to watch the Muppet movie. I said, fuck yeah, I love the Muppets. I haven't seen that original Muppet movie from 1979 in probably 7 years in full, so I'm glad we watched it. It was an enjoyable film, and I'm looking forward to the show, and it really did serve as a nice preview for when we watch the show. I don't know if we'll watch it on Friday. Maybe. Potentially. I would like to watch a couple of episodes on Friday before SmackDown with Alexis, because she loves the show too. And we also just we were at Barnes & Noble before we went out on Saturday for a Valentine's Day dinner. And I had this I have a bunch of Barnes & Noble like gift cards with a lot of money on them. And she's wanted one of the Muppet shows, like one of the Muppet Show DVDs, like one of the seasons for a long time. Now, she used to have it, she lost it, and we found season 1 at Barnes & Noble for like, I don't know, $15 or something, so we got it. And obviously, they'll all be on Disney+, but it's nice to have the hard copy too. So, I'm very excited for that. Disney Plus has got some banging content. They're really adding a lot of great shit, and the Muppet Show will be added to that list. So, I watched the reboot show when that came out 5-6 years ago. That's actually been on Disney Plus, I think, since the beginning. I watched half of the show back. I haven't rewatched it in a while. I never finished the rest of the first season. There's only one season, but during our rewatch, we only watched the first 5 episodes. I didn't finish it, although I did watch every episode during its original run 5-6 years ago. But I can't wait to watch that. So as far as your other question with Asuka, that's probably the more important question. I'm still banking on Charlotte and Rhea being the WrestleMania match. So I've seen people say that with Lacey Evans getting legitimately pregnant this past week, that Charlotte might take her spot on Sunday, face Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship, beat her, and then Rhea comes to Raw, as she should, and then faces Charlotte at WrestleMania. You could do a triple threat with Asuka, Charlotte, and Rhea. That's not a bad idea either, and as I've seen other people say, Asuka lost to Charlotte at WrestleMania 2-3 years ago at this point. She wants to avenge that loss. Rhea wants to avenge her loss to Charlotte from WrestleMania from last year. So it's a good story to tell. I just think Charlotte and Rhea would be a better story. I know Asuka has worked her ass off the last year. It would be kind of a fuck you for her to be the Raw Women's Champion for close to a year. And then she gets the belt taken off of her. It's not like in 2018, 2019 when she was champion for like a couple of months. They took the belt off of her, and then she ended up in the Battle Royal at WrestleMania. This is a little different because she's been champion literally all year, since like right after WrestleMania due to Becky getting pregnant. So it would be a fuck you for her not to be involved in the match. I just think Charlotte and Rhea one-on-one again is a much better story. We already saw the triple threat with Charlotte and Rhea and Io at TakeOver last year. You could do the rematch of the next pay-per-view one-on-one. I would rather just see it at WrestleMania. So honestly, I hope that's what they do. I hope Asuka loses the Raw Women's Championship before then. She's a complete fucking afterthought anyway, and I love Asuka. But her reign has been a complete afterthought. And like she was involved in that tag team match on Raw, you would never even know she was the Raw Women's Champion. She was a complete joke in that match. Just take the belt off of her. Charlotte's more important at this point anyway. At least that's how they position her. And then just have Rhea come to Raw finally, face Charlotte at WrestleMania, beat her for the Raw Women's Championship. That's how you do it. At Iwagu91's got a couple questions here. First one being, what are your thoughts on Matt Striker and D'Lo Brown being the new commentators of Impact Wrestling? I think they've done a decent job so far. I really didn't hate Josh Matthews as much as almost everyone else did. I watch the product consistently. I feel like a lot of people who shit on the guy don't, because they hear him. I mean, he's not a great commentator, clearly, but I feel like a lot of people hear him and they're like, oh, he's as bad as he was 5 years ago. Like, people weren't shitting on Josh Matthews 10 years ago when he was in WWE. You would think, if anything, he would be more unbearable in WWE and more bearable in Impact. I think what a lot of people remember was that he really was not good at all. Like in 2015, 2016, 2017, especially when they turned him heel. They were doing the whole Michael Cole thing, which was fucking terrible. And he was feuding with like Jeremy Borash. That was stupid. He sucked. He took away from the show. After we got past that, he really wasn't like that bad. Like, he wasn't great, but he wasn't that bad. But anyway, Madison Rayne wasn't great either. But I think D'Lo and Matt have good chemistry. Matt's way over the top sometimes. He's like, oh, these are like the greatest wrestlers in the world, or like this might be the greatest match of all time. Like, he said something about Dreamer and Swan being like the biggest main event match of like the last decade, or some dumb shit like that. I'm like, dude, I like Matt Striker, but he can be way too over the top sometimes. He is way too WWE sometimes. But D'Lo I like a lot. I've always liked D'Lo, but he's a good commentator. He's actually coming into the role quite well, so they're not bad. They're not the greatest commentary team out there, and they're still improving and finding that chemistry. But I've heard worse, and I think so far they've been solid. What are your thoughts on Trey Miguel staying with Impact instead of joining WWE? I tweeted this last night, but I think the Rascals going their separate ways was the best thing that could have happened to any of them. Nash Carter and Wesley, formerly known as Wentz and Dez of the Rascals from Impact. Now that they're in NXT as MSK, they are already bigger stars than they ever were in Impact. And not just because it's a bigger platform. They've won more matches. They won the whole fucking Men's Dusty Classic. They have officially won more in a month in NXT than they ever did in 2 years at Impact. Seriously, they never won the tag team titles once, and they don't have a lot of tag teams. You would think they would win the championships at least once. They never fucking did. How? I have no idea, but I think what they did was brilliant because now 2 of the members are on their own in NXT killing it in the tag team division. You could have brought in all 3, but the more I think about it, how really would that have worked? Would it have been a Forgotten Sons type deal where one of them would be a manager or they would kind of like they would substitute each other out? I don't know. Like, it's not the Undisputed Era. It's not a full-on faction. The Rascals, like the whole treehouse thing, some people like that shit. I thought it was terrible. The whole, let's put a bong sound in their entrance. I always thought that was awful. I thought the gimmicks sucked, and they were always great in the ring. And now we're finally getting to see that. With MSK, they don't have the dumb gimmick anymore holding them back. That might have been their idea and who they are in real life. Keep that shit for Matt Riddle or Rob Van Dam. For these guys, it was stupid. Like the whole 70s show parody, and I like the 70s show, but I thought that was dumb too. So anyway, I think they're way better off in NXT. And now Trey Miguel staying in Impact. I guess they probably offered him a deal and he just said no. But I think him staying on his own, staying with Impact, and ditching the whole Rascals thing was the best thing this guy could have done. The best thing the guy could have done. He's only been back for a few weeks. He already feels like a star. He's great in the ring. He's more serious now. He's in a feud with Sami Callihan. I'm a big Trey Miguel fan, more so now than ever before. Like, literally a year ago, they were putting him in the X Division title hunt, and the whole thing when he was feuding with, who was it, Ace Austin, I think, was that Trey had his mom at ringside. I'm like, dude, the fuck is going on here? Like, it was so stupid. I'm sure it wasn't even his mom, but I'm like, this is so fucking dumb. But, like, he's more serious now, and he's great. So, him, staying on his own, not going to NXT, and staying in Impact and doing his own thing, best thing he could have done. The other 2, leaving Impact, going off on their own, best thing they could have done. Because everyone now is way better off as a result. His third question, what are your thoughts on the Tonys doing ads on Impact? I think they're funny. Some are better than others. And Tony Khan's acting is terrible, but I'm sure that's the point. The guy is not an on-air performer. If this is the extent of what we get of Tony Khan on like AEW TV or any major promotion, then I'm okay with that. I don't need to see him on Dynamite doing this shit because he comes across as so awkward during these ads, but it's funny and it's a good way for them to tease stuff for AEW, continue the cross promotion with Impact, and promote their matches for the next night. So I think it's a win-win all the way around. People tune into Impact to see what Tony Khan and Tony Schiavone are going to say. They're entertaining sometimes. So, I'm enjoying it so far. At E13A from Twitter, when does someone become too problematic for you? I lost a lot of respect for Jim Cornette after finding out the stuff that he would say about women's wrestlers and how common they were. Example, claiming people like Rio are only in AEW because they sleep with Kenny Omega. I talked about Jim last week. I really don't want to go into great detail about this because there's just no need to. Obviously, the guy's very problematic. I thought I laid this out pretty clearly last week. I don't listen to every episode of Jim Cornette's show. I really don't care what he has to say more often than not. I'll get sent clips of like what he has to say about wrestling stuff. I think that's interesting. As far as from a wrestling standpoint, his thoughts on the wrestling world, a bit, outdated sometimes. Not exactly up to speed on a lot of stuff. Some people would say that he's prehistoric, all this other shit, But I do think he has a lot of good ideas. The thing with Cornette that I thought I explained very well last week, maybe not, is that he just likes to stir people up. And I'm not even saying that these aren't his real views. Some of these might be actual views. Like, he might actually be really racist. I honestly have no idea. I feel like that he just puts on this front, whether it be on commentary, specifically on his podcast, where he says a lot of dumb shit, a lot of racist stuff, and a lot of misogynistic stuff to get a rise out of people, to get people talking, to get people angry, and just to be funny. Do I think it's funny? More often than not, I really don't. I mean, a lot of the stuff that he says, he just goes way overboard. He can be a funny guy. When he gets racist and shit like that, it's like, dude, like, what are you doing? I mean, it's 2021. You're doing a fucking public podcast. I'm sure he doesn't give a fuck about being shadow banned from all these promotions, because otherwise he would have stopped doing a show a long time ago. But he has an audience. He has a big audience, and I don't know if that audience looks at him that same way, like feels the same way that he does, or they're just there for the wrestling stuff. I don't know. I think his thoughts on wrestling can be interesting sometimes, but like the misogynistic comments, I mean, like, dude, like the whole, like, I know he's not a fan of like Joshi wrestling, and that's fine. Like he's not a big fan of women's wrestling in general, I think, but specifically Japanese women's wrestling. I don't closely follow women's Japanese wrestling myself, but like insinuating that Riho is with them because he slept or she slept with Kenny Omega is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And again, if he actually believes that, then the guy's got problems. I feel like he's just saying that as a fucking joke. Riho was definitely in the company because she knew Kenny beforehand. Kenny thinks very highly of her. I mean, I don't know if it's what's the word for it? Not negligence. What is it called? You know what I'm talking about? Like favoritism? I don't know if it definitely is a thing of favoritism, I think, because, you know, he's worked with her before, blah, blah, blah. It's not because she slept with the guy. I mean, I think that's incredibly stupid and even dumber to say on a public platform. But again, I think he just tries it to be funny. Like the edgelord type comedy. Like a lot of the comedy that you would see on like Reddit or 4chan and shit like that. I don't go on that shit. I'm just going off of like what my buddy would tell me. Because my friend in college was really like that. But I feel like he tries to be too edgy. And at this point, it's just not funny. It's just really cringy. So, again, he absolutely is problematic. I would not employ him by any major promotion, because he absolutely is too much of a risk, as seen in the NWA, in an Impact, in a Ring of Honor, in WWE, all these other instances. MLW. So he just goes off the handle a little too much sometimes. I know people tune into him to hear his rants, and those are very entertaining. But when he goes off about all this other shit, it's like, dude, you probably should not be saying that on a public platform. That's the shit that he says is stuff that you say with like your buddies or something, or probably just not say at all. I think that's really questionable. So he absolutely is problematic. I'm not even, like I said this last week. I don't listen to the guy more often than not. I'll listen to some of his clips. He does have interesting opinions on certain things going on in wrestling, but he absolutely is problematic. There is zero reason to defend that, and there is no condoning what this guy says more often than not when it comes to the racist shit and the misogynistic shit. What's going to happen this Sunday? WWE Elimination Chamber. My predictions real quickly, I think Sheamus will win the WWE Championship. I think Cesaro will win the other chamber and then lose to Roman Reigns. I think if we're getting the U.S. Championship match, I'm going to say Keith Lee wins by pinning Riddle. What else are we getting? Those are 3 matches. Aren't we getting something else from SmackDown? I don't remember. I know we were supposed to get Lacey and Asuka, but that's not happening now. If we get Charlotte, then I see Charlotte beating Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship. I don't remember what else is on the card. I really don't know. But yeah, as far as chamber stuff is concerned, I think Cesaro is going to win and Sheamus is going to win. At Scarlet1 from Twitter, best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars. The best, I think MSK and Legado del Fantasma was fantastic on NXT last week. That was my match of the week for WWE last week. Grizzled Young Vets versus Ciampa and Thatcher in the main event was great. The Ways, Candice LeRae, and Indy Hartwell against Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart was really good. And then over from Dynamite, I thought the main event was the best part of the show. Moxley and Archer versus Omega and Kenta, fantastic main event. Thunder Rosa and legit Layla Hirsch was really good. And the Sammy Guevara quitting Inner Circle angle was well done too. I thought Dynamite was just not a good show last week, but the final like half an hour I thought was great. And then NXT, that was a really solid show overall as far as like building the takeover, and the build of the takeover I thought was great too. The worst, nothing really from NXT. That NXT was pretty good on the whole. I'm still not sure what to think about the Cameron Grimes thing. It's kind of growing on me. I was almost going to put that in the worst category. I'd probably be fucking railed over the coals for that just because so many people love the new Cameron Grimes. I'm still not sold. I think it's entertaining. I don't know. I need to see more of it, so I'm not going to put it in either category just yet. But like the worst from Dynamite, Darby Allin and Joey Janela was good, but like Darby getting kidnapped with Sting like barely reacting was stupid. I don't care. I know they're building to the match without Sting wrestling before then, but it's just we've reached the point where we need the match. I feel like they blew their load way too early with the Sting debut, and they probably should have waited a couple weeks or a month or so. Lee Johnson and Cody Rhodes versus Peter Avalon and Cesaro Bononi. Who cares? Felt like a dark main event. And Pac and Nick Nemeth. I'm glad Pac is picking up wins and whatnot, but Nick Nemeth is just fucking terrible. I mean, the guy is just not good. I mean, maybe not terrible, but he's as bland as bread. The match was a quick squash, but again, should have happened on Dark. Have you heard about Gina Carano being released from The Mandalorian? Holy shit, talk about problematic. Of course I heard about that. And the thing is with her, the writing was on the wall anyway. I forgot what she said exactly, but she said something dumb not before, but like during the election thing last year. And I think she's a Republican, which, whatever. I'm not saying, oh, fire her because she's a Trump supporter, blah, blah, blah. She just said something really stupid. Or no. It wasn't a Republican thing. It was like was it an anti-transgender thing? Was that what it was? She said something against transgender people. And I think Pedro Pascal's sister, maybe? He knows someone that was transgender or is related to someone that's transgender. So what she said was what she said was fucking dumb anyway. But to say something like that while she works with someone who deals that is related to a transgender person was really fucking inconsiderate and stupid. So that happened, and she wasn't fired. I don't really think anything came out of it. But people hated her even then, and that was a couple of months ago. So what she said recently, getting her fired, does absolutely not surprise me at all. Like, this is not a case like with the guy who wrote Guardians. His name escapes me. James Gunn. When he got fired a couple of years ago for tweets that were gross, but they were from like 10 years earlier. I mean, everyone grows, everyone's different. I thought that was stupid. And Disney just did that to save face, and then they brought him back. Wonderful. The Gina Carano thing, these are not old comments. She literally put that on her fucking Instagram on Thursday or Friday, and they got immediately fired. I mean, you'd have to go back and look at the exact context, but basically she had said something along the lines of comparing a Republican during this point in time, either now or during the election or whatever, to being a Jewish person in the Holocaust. It doesn't matter if there's any similarities there or not, no matter how strong or loose they might be. Comparing anything to the Holocaust is so fucking problematic. To think that way is one thing, stupid, whatever, keep it to yourself. To literally not only say it, but put it somewhere where everyone will see it and everyone will, it'll be kept forever, is an entirely other thing. What a fucking dumb thing to do. So, yeah, I'm glad she's gone. I know her character was a big part of the show. She won't be missed. I mean, I liked her character, but it's not like, the show can't go on without her, like Pedro Pascal or something. Like, yeah, she's a big part of the show, but they have so many other great female talents on that show, female leads. It doesn't matter if she's a part of it or not. It doesn't matter. They could just say that she died or something, or, you know what? I was going to say that she left. She's like, went off on another mission. You know what? No. She got fired for saying disgusting stuff. Just have her, you don't have to have her in the show, but just say, yeah, she just got mauled to death by like a fucking, I don't know, like a Tusken Raider or something like that. I don't fucking know, but yeah, that did not surprise me at all. The writing was on the wall there. And finally, have you heard about WWE's new Twitter policy? Yeah, there's nothing new here. There's nothing major here. It hasn't been a major talking point, unsurprisingly, just because it's just an extension of the third-party bans, where I'm pretty sure the policy indicates that that you can't promote like third-party companies on your Twitter or on your social media, on Instagram, whatever. I mean, there's nothing new there. So, yeah, nothing surprising. No new thoughts. It is what it is. Just an extension of what we've seen for a long time now. And, hey, that died down pretty quickly. The whole, Twitch ban and the video game stuff. And there were a lot of people up in arms about that. Maybe there's still people fighting over that backstage, but we have not heard almost anything about that since late last year. So enough time has passed. People are just dealing with it or moved on or whatever. So it was a big deal to all of us, and we talked about it for a long time and how, they shouldn't be doing that type of stuff, blah, blah, blah. But, hey, if the talent aren't making a fuss about it, I mean, again, maybe behind the scenes they are, but there really has been no update as far as I know about that in the last couple of months. So not to say why should we care, but, there's really nothing new, and it is what it is, so whatever. But that's going to do it, guys, for episode 377 here today of #AskGSM for February 17th, 2021. Thank you guys, as always, for checking out the show. I appreciate it. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So with all that being said, one more thing. Like I said, new interview coming up on Friday, so subscribe. Hit the bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up. Like the video, drop a comment, share this video, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, new interview going up on Friday. And the second thing I was going to say was that, again, I apologize not only for my mispronunciation of all the names of the Japanese women's wrestlers. I apologize for that. But also because, again, there was a lot of skips on this episode when I was pausing it for whatever reason. I think it's because I have lower storage on my laptop than usual, and that's usually what does it. So it cut out a lot. I tried my best to salvage it. I apologize. It's very obvious at certain points. So it's not the video's processing fault. It was the Audacity recording part of this fault. So hopefully that will be solved by next week and it won't be a problem. But until next time, guys, have a great one. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.